Speaker, the whole nation is shocked by the rape gang scandal. Thousands of young teenage girls systematically raped over years by men of predominantly Pakistani heritage. Girls like Jane, who was repeatedly gang raped at the age of just 12. The police found her being abused by an illegal immigrant. But instead of arresting the illegal immigrant, they arrested her. That is sick. The last government took action by setting up the wider J inquiry and the Grooming Gangs Task Force. But the truth is, that is not enough. There is now clear evidence that those in authority covered up these rapes because the perpetrators were mainly of Pakistani heritage. Last week, I met retired Detective Chief Inspector John Pecos. In Bradford, he witnessed the abuse of a young girl in a car, but he was then instructed by a chief superintendent to drop the matter to avoid antagonising Bradford's Muslim community. Covering up the rape of young girls for that reason is one of the most immoral things I have ever heard. Yet not a single person, not one, has ever been held to account for these cover-ups. That is why we need a national statutory public inquiry which can compel production of evidence. Even last year, authorities in Manchester were still covering up, leading to the chairs of the local Manchester inquiry to resign. 5 local inquiries, which can't compel the production of evidence, just won't do. 50 towns are affected, not 5. And Bradford, where some of the worst abuse occurred, is refusing to cooperate with any inquiry at all. So there won't be an inquiry in Bradford because their council is refusing to participate. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Home Secretary promised on the 16th of January that Baroness Casey would complete a rapid audit within 3 months. Well, 3 months has now passed and we have heard nothing whatsoever. Almost there. The government said there would be 5 local inquiries, but we know nothing about 4 of them, and the man charged with setting them up, Tom Crowther, said to the Home Affairs Committee on the 1st of this month that he had been sidelined by the minister over there and, quote, did not know what was going on. Now, finally, Mr. Speaker, I recently met Marlon West, whose daughter was trafficked, abused and raped by mainly Asian men, including in Bradford. He said this government should be ashamed of themselves and they should hold a national inquiry. Jane, who was trafficked and gang raped at 12, also wants a statutory national inquiry. Labour Mayor Andy Burnham, Harriet Harman and the Labour MP for Rotherham all agree. So will the Minister do what they and Marlon and Jane are all begging for and hold that national inquiry so those who covered up that scandal are at last held to account?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Shadow Home Secretary, and I say that I don't need to read out the things that were found in other local inquiries to know, because I speak to the victims. I spoke to some of the victims of grooming gangs this morning. I will speak to some more tomorrow. I have spoken to them from Oxford, from Birmingham, from Rochdale, from Rotherham, from Oldham. I know exactly the issue of the cover-up, as does everybody already, because of the many local inquiries that have told us that this happened and the national inquiry that has told us that there were cover-ups. What we must focus on is making sure, like happened in Telford, that there is a local process of accountability that actually changes things on the ground, and that is what I will do. I have been trying to change the issue of this on the ground for all of my life, since the very first time I ever met a girl who had been ignored. I will continue to do that and do what is right for the victims.
Mr. Speaker, I genuinely welcome, Mr. Speaker, the renewed focus on this issue that's come in this Parliament. In the Home Affairs Select Committee, we've heard evidence from Professor Jay, who gave evidence to our committee about her report, which made a number of recommendations in November 2022. She then set out her efforts trying to get the last Conservative government to act on any of those recommendations for a period of over 90 weeks. She spoke about begging 2 Home Secretaries to take action, She spoke about talking to a chief of staff to one of the former Tory Prime Ministers who ignored her. So does the Minister agree with me that rather than words now, action is far more important?
I absolutely agree that action is what is needed, which is exactly why the Home Secretary has written to all police forces in England and Wales seeking to ensure that more arrests are made in these cases, and the task force, the Grooming Gang Task Force, has in the last 9 months made 597 arrests, surpassing the entire previous year, because we are so heavily focused on making sure that these people end up behind bars. I think that Baroness J was ignored by the previous government, and had we had mandatory reporting 10 years ago when the current Home Secretary asked for it, perhaps more people would have been held accountable.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. No child should ever endure sexual exploitation or abuse. Such horrific and unacceptable crimes must have no place in our society. Victims and survivors of these crimes must be at the centre of our thoughts whenever we discuss these matters. But we owe it to them not just to offer words of support, but to deliver justice and bring offenders to account. And this also means taking firm preventative action to protect future generations from such harm. The independent inquiry into child sexual abuse, led by Professor Alexis J, published its recommendations in 2022. So could the Minister please set out a clear timetable for the full implementation of the J inquiry's recommendations? And does the Minister agree with me that a duty of candour via a Hillsborough law would bring transparency and accountability to any future inquiries? And so can the Government commit to a timetable to delivering this?
I thank the Honourable Lady and agree with her that the inquiries and all of this is only worth anything if we crack on, and that is why when I came before the House before the recess, I said that we would go alongside the publishing of an action plan around the recommendations of the J report and also Jay's work into grooming gangs as part of that is all been published as part of a government plan, but it is only the beginning, and actually this is going to take years and years. And with regard to the duty of candour, it seems appalling, doesn't it, that we have to ask people to tell the truth, and yet here we are. Of course, that is what we must be striving for. And like she says, on behalf of the victims and survivors.
Chris Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we've heard, when Alexis J came to the Home Affairs Committee, she told how she had pushed and pushed for the implementations of her long, wide-ranging report to be implemented and had heard nothing back from the previous government. So I welcome this urgent question today, because this issue requires an urgency we did not see from the previous government. As someone who has worked on protecting the victims of child trafficking, I know we need local responses, but there is an element for a national coordination. Before recess, the Minister announced the creation of the Child Protection Authority. Can she tell us more about the remit and the role that that organisation will have in ensuring that nationwide we clamp down on this horrific crime?
Yes, so as was outlined in Professor Alexis J. report, that the need for an overarching authority to ensure accountability across the child protection system was made very clear. And so as we roll out with the new authority, we are consulting with many experts about exactly what that needs to look like, and ensuring that we get the very, very best possible. Because I am sick of hearing lessons learned in a serious case review about a child rape or a child rape gang or a child death. There needs to be genuine accountability, and things need to change.
Committee, Karen Bradley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I agree with the Minister that this has to be victim-centred and that we must put victims at the heart of everything we do. Could she provide more information about when we will know about the remaining 4 locations, and also what will she do to ensure that councils that are reluctant to be part of this are compelled to do so?
I thank the honourable lady, and whilst we have committed to 5, I expect to actually go further, and I'll answer the question of when, and the framework for what local authorities will be tasked with will be released later in May, and as will Baroness Casey's review